The 4th of July is supposed to be loud, fireworks, music, um, barbecues, crowds. But sometimes those explosions hide sounds no one was ever meant to hear. Every year after Independence Day, police departments across America quietly receive reports that never make national headlines. People disappear during fireworks shows. Emergency calls cut off without explanation. Strange figures are spotted moving through smoke filled neighborhoods while everyone else is looking up at the sky. Most are forgotten within days. These are three of those stories. And according to the people who survived them, the fireworks weren't the scariest thing they heard that night. The first story happened in 2022 just outside Boise, Idaho. 23-year-old Ethan had always loved photographing fireworks. Unlike most people, he hated crowded parks. So every year, he drove into the foothills overlooking the city. From there, he could capture the entire skyline glowing beneath thousands of explosions without another person around. At least, that was usually the plan. Around 8:30 that evening, Ethan parked his truck beside an abandoned service road leading into the hills. The area had once been used by forest rangers decades earlier, but now only hikers occasionally visited during daylight. After sunset, almost nobody came there. He grabbed his camera bag, tripod, flashlight, and started hiking toward his favorite overlook. The trail wasn't difficult, only about 15 minutes uphill. As darkness settled over the valley below, distant fireworks already painted flashes of red and blue across the sky. Families laughed somewhere far below. Those bagel car alarms occasionally echoed through town. Everything felt normal. Ethan reached the overlook just before 9. He set up his tripod beside a large boulder and waited. The city looked incredible. Lights stretched for miles beneath him. Within minutes, fireworks erupted across the skyline. His camera clicked continuously. Long exposures, bright colors, perfect reflections, exactly the shots he'd hoped for. Then, between two bursts of fireworks, he heard another sound. 3 sharp whistles, not birds, not fireworks, human whistles. Coming from somewhere deeper in the forest behind him, he turned around. Nothing. Only rows of dark pine trees swaying gently in the wind. He assumed another photographer had arrived, maybe hikers. He ignored it. A few minutes later, the whistles returned, this time closer, 3 short whistles, then silence. Ethan called out, "Hello?" No answer. He scanned the woods with his flashlight. The beam reached only a short distance before darkness swallowed everything else. He laughed nervously. Probably teenagers trying to scare people. He returned to taking photos. Then his camera suddenly refused to focus. The autofocus hunted back and forth. Confused, he looked through the lens. Instead of focusing on the fireworks, the camera locked onto something standing among the trees, too far away to see clearly. A vertical shape, perfectly still. He lowered the camera. Nothing. Raised it again. There it was, a silhouette, tall, motionless. Watching him, he zoomed in. Before the image sharpened, another firework exploded overhead. The flash temporarily blinded him. When his vision returned, the figure was gone. His stomach tightened. He checked the photo he'd just taken. The trees were empty. No person. No animal. Nothing. Great, he muttered. My imagination. He packed another memory card into the camera and kept shooting. For nearly 20 minutes, nothing unusual happened. The fireworks grew louder. Smoke drifted across the valley. Everything felt normal again. Until his phone buzzed. No signal. Yet somehow, a text message had appeared. Unknown number. It contained only 6 words. Stop looking at the city. Ethan frowned. There shouldn't have been service up there. He looked around instinctively. Still nobody? He typed back, "Who is this?" The message failed to send. No signal. A cold feeling settled into his chest. Then another notification appeared. This one wasn't a text. It was an airdrop request. There were no nearby devices. The sender's name read, "Turn around." His hands froze. Slowly, very slowly, he turned. The flashlight illuminated the trees. Nothing. Then 3 whistles. Right behind him. He spun around so fast he nearly dropped the flashlight. The beam swept across the forest, branch, bushes, rocks, nothing else. His breathing became uneven. He decided he'd had enough. The fireworks weren't worth this. He collapsed the tripod, stuffed his camera into the bag, and started back toward the trail. The forest suddenly felt different, quieter. Even the fireworks seemed distant now. Halfway down the trail, he noticed footprints in the dirt, fresh ones, bare feet, leading uphill toward where he'd been standing. He stared at them. Who hikes barefoot through sharp mountain trails at night? The footprints continued past him, straight toward the overlook. He hadn't seen anyone pass. He quickly looked behind him. Empty trail. When he looked back down, the footprints had changed direction. Now, they pointed downhill toward him. Ethan's heartbeat pounded in his ears. He began walking faster. The whistles returned, this time matching his pace. 3 whistles, pause, 3 more, always somewhere behind him, never close enough to locate, never far enough to ignore. He reached the old service road and finally saw his truck. Relief flooded through him. He unlocked it remotely. The headlights flashed. Then someone answered with 3 whistles. From directly beside the truck, Ethan stopped dead. The headlights illuminated only the driver's side. The passenger side remained hidden in darkness. He couldn't see what was standing there. He clicked the unlock button again. The truck honked. Whatever had been beside it moved, not away, around the front of the vehicle, slowly, just out of sight. Ethan wasn't about to investigate. He sprinted toward the driver's door, threw it open, and jumped inside. The moment he slammed the door shut, something struck the roof of the truck. Not hard, just one deliberate tap. Then another, then a third. He looked through the windshield. Nothing. He grabbed the keys with shaking hands. The engine roared to life. As he shifted into reverse, the backup camera activated. At first, it showed the empty road. Then the image flickered. For less than a second, a pale face filled the entire screen. Sunken eyes, an unnatural smile stretching far too wide. Then the screen returned to normal. Ethan slammed the accelerator and tore down the mountain road without looking back. When he reached town, he pulled into the nearest gas station. Still shaking, he reviewed every photo from that night. Most showed exactly what he'd expected. Fireworks, the skyline, smoke drifting across the city. Then he reached the final image. It wasn't pointed at the sky. It wasn't pointed at the forest. It was pointed directly behind him. He had no memory of taking it. The photograph showed Ethan standing beside his tripod, completely unaware, and less than 3 feet behind him, someone was smiling into the camera. Ethan dropped the camera. It hit the concrete beside the gas pump with a crack that made everyone nearby turn their heads. He didn't care. His hands were shaking too badly to pick it up. The gas station clerk walked outside. You all right, man? Ethan nodded automatically. He wasn't, he couldn't stop staring at the image. The figure behind him wasn't blurred. It wasn't hidden in the shadows. It was perfectly clear. A man. At least, it looked like a man. He was unnaturally tall, completely bald. His skin was almost white, as if it had never seen sunlight. And his smile, it stretched much farther than a normal person should. The strangest part wasn't his appearance. It was where he was looking. He wasn't looking at Ethan. He was looking directly into the camera, as if he knew the picture was being taken. The clerk leaned closer. What am I looking at? Ethan turned the camera around. The photo was gone. He blinked, scrolled backward, then forward. The image had disappeared completely. The final photo now showed nothing except fireworks exploding above the city. He checked the memory card on his laptop when he got home. Nothing. No deleted files. No corrupted data. It was as if the photograph had never existed. For days, Ethan convinced himself exhaustion had caused him to imagine everything. The whistles, the message, the face on the backup camera, the mysterious photograph. He stopped talking about it, stopped thinking about it, until 1 week later, he received an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single printed photograph, not from his camera, from somewhere else. It showed him standing beside his truck that same night. The picture had been taken from deep inside the trees. On the back, someone had written, "Next year, don't leave so early." Ethan sold his camera equipment 2 days later. He has never photographed fireworks again. To this day, every 6th of July, he leaves town before sunset because he believes whatever smiled behind him that night only comes back once a year. The second story happened on the 6th of July 2019 in a quiet neighborhood outside Savannah, Georgia. Most people had already cleaned up after the Independence Day celebrations. The streets were peaceful again. Only the occasional firework echoed in the distance from people using leftovers. 28-year-old Melissa had spent the evening alone. Her husband worked night shifts as a paramedic, leaving around 6 o'clock. She planned to watch movies until he returned after midnight. Around 10:30 p.m., the electricity flickered once. Then again, the television shut off. A moment later, it came back on. Melissa style. Summer storms often caused brief outages. She thought nothing of it. Then the doorbell rang. She checked the time. 10:37 p.m. Too late for neighbors. Too early for her husband. She walked to the front door and looked through the people. Nobody. She waited. Still nothing. Then the doorbell rang again. This time longer. She opened the door. The porch was empty. The street lights illuminated perfectly still sidewalks. No cars. No people. Only dozens of small American flags left behind after the holiday fluttering gently in the warm night breeze. She closed the door, locked it. The instant the deadbolt clicked, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. You looked through the wrong hole. Melissa's stomach dropped. She stepped away from the door. Every instinct told her not to look outside again. Instead, she checked every window in the house. The front yard was empty. The backyard was empty. Nothing moved. She called her husband. No answer. He was probably with a patient. She left a voicemail asking him to call immediately. 10 minutes passed. Nothing happened. Melissa started convincing herself someone was playing a prank. Then the electricity went out completely. This time, it didn't come back. The house fell into total darkness. Only faint moonlight entered through the windows. She grabbed a flashlight from the kitchen drawer. As she turned it on, she heard three soft knocks, not at the front door, not at the back door, from inside the walls. Knock, knock, knock. She froze. Another three knocks answered from somewhere upstairs. Then another from beneath the kitchen floor, like someone was moving through the house. Without ever entering it, Melissa backed into the living room, her flashlight beam darting wildly from wall to wall. Then it landed on the hallway mirror. Someone was standing behind her. She screamed and spun around. Nothing. The hallway was empty. Slowly, she looked back at the mirror. The reflection was normal again, except written across the glass in foggy fingerprints were four words. Melissa stumbled backwards so fast she crashed into the coffee table. The flashlight rolled across the floor, spinning in slow circles. By the time she grabbed it again, the writing on the mirror was gone. She stood there, trying to convince herself she'd imagined it. Maybe the flashlight had reflected strangely. Maybe stress was making her see things. Then she heard another sound. Footsteps. Slow, measured, coming from upstairs. Her husband wasn't home. No one else had a key. The footsteps crossed the hallway above her head. One, two, three, then stopped directly over the living room. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Melissa held her breath. The silence that followed was somehow worse. She quietly unlocked her phone. Still no signal. Not one bar. She tried calling 911 anyway. The call failed instantly. She remembered the landline in the kitchen. Her husband insisted on keeping one for emergencies. She hurried toward it. The receiver was already off the hook. It swung gently beside the wall, as though someone had just finished using it. Melissa slowly picked it up. Not dial tone, only breathing. Very slow breathing. Then, a whisper. I'm almost downstairs. The line went dead. Melissa dropped the receiver and ran toward the back door. It wouldn't open. She unlocked it again. Nothing. It felt like someone was holding it shut. From the outside, she pulled harder. Still nothing. Then she heard the footsteps again. This time, they were on the stairs. One step, pause. Another step, pause. Whoever it was taking their time. Melissa didn't wait to find out. She climbed through the kitchen window, cutting her arm on the broken latch, and dropped into the backyard. The summer air hit her face. She sprinted across the grass toward her neighbor's house. Halfway there, she looked back. Someone was standing in her kitchen, perfectly still, watching her through the broken window. The porch lights from nearby houses should have illuminated the figure. Instead, it looked darker than the darkness around it. She reached her neighbor's door and pounded on it. No answer. She knocked again. Still nothing. The cars were in the driveway. Someone had to be home. Then she noticed every house on the street. Every porch light was off. Every television was dark. No music. No barking dogs. No air conditioners humming. The entire neighborhood felt empty. She turned back toward her own house. The figure was gone. Suddenly, every light on the street came back on at exactly the same moment. Air conditioners started humming. Televisions flickered through windows. Someone down the block laughed. It was as if the neighborhood had awakened from a deep sleep. Her neighbor finally opened the door. An elderly man named Mr. Collins looked confused. Melissa, you okay? She was crying too hard to answer. He invited her inside and called the police. Officers arrived within 10 minutes. They searched her house from top to bottom. Nothing, no signs of forced entry. No footprints, no fingerprints, no broken locks. The upstairs rooms were untouched. The mirror in the hallway was perfectly clean. One officer even tested the back door. It opened easily as if it had never been stuck. Melissa began wondering if she'd suffered some kind of panic attack until one officer walked into the living room carrying something. Mom, is this yours? It was an old black and white photograph. Melissa had never seen it before. The picture showed her house, but it wasn't recent. The cars were different. The trees were much smaller. Written in faded ink across the bottom was the date, the 6th of July 1984. In front of the house stood a family of four: a mother, a father, a little boy, and a little girl. The officer flipped the photo over. There was handwriting on the back. We're finally leaving. He only comes after the fireworks. Police researched the address. What they discovered disturbed everyone involved. The family in the photograph had lived there exactly 40 years earlier. According to newspaper archives, they abandoned the house overnight, every possession left behind. Neighbors reported they disappeared without telling anyone where they were going. The case was never solved. Melissa and her husband moved out less than 2 weeks later. Before leaving, she asked the previous owner if anyone had ever mentioned strange things happening in the house. The man looked uncomfortable, then admitted he'd received an identical anonymous message the night before selling the property. Only 4 words: "Thank you for staying." He thought it was a prank. Now, he wasn't so sure. The third story happened on the 6th of July 2021, just outside Flagstaff, Arizona. 26-year-old Tyler volunteered every summer to help clean public campgrounds after holiday weekends. Most people hated the job. He actually enjoyed it. By the 6th of July, nearly everyone had gone home. The forests were quiet again. Only forgotten tents, empty coolers, and burned out campfires remained. That morning, Tyler drove deep into a national forest to inspect a remote camping area that had received complaints of abandoned equipment. The road ended at a clearing surrounded by towering pine trees. It looked completely deserted, or so he thought. Near one of the old fire pits, someone had left a brand new folding chair, perfectly clean, facing the forest, not the campsite, not the mountains, just the trees. Sitting on the chair was a disposable camera, and taped to it was a handwritten note. It read only one sentence: "Don't develop the last picture.